Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about gardening, botanical history, and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is April 27th. Today we celebrate a 20th century landscape architect who focused on his clients' desires and needs. And this desire to personalize his work made him incredibly successful. And we'll also learn about a species tulip that's praised for its hardiness and peppermint candy appearance. We'll hear some thoughts about the first fine spring days. And we grow that garden library today with a book that will help you finally replace your high-maintenance lawn with something sustainable, inviting, and low maintenance. And then we'll wrap things up with the story of Flora, the Roman goddess of spring. But first, here's today's curated news. Today's curated news comes to us from Pure Wow. This is a post that was written by Erica Ellen Sansone, and the title is The 15 Best Ground Cover Plants for Your Garden. Now, I always have to say that if you're looking at ground covers, well, by definition, you're looking at something that is meant to be invasive. You want it to cover the ground. Now, there's a difference between a good ground cover and a ground cover that will just go completely out of control. And so you want to do your homework. You definitely do not want to put an invasive in your garden. So make sure that you do your ground cover research. Now, in Arica's article, she talks about things like creeping thyme. That's one of my all-time favorite ground covers. And I'll never forget a garden that I pulled up to. I think they were having some type of plant sale. And I saw her entire lawn had been replaced with creeping thyme. And it really was so beautiful. She had a little cottage garden. And the day that I stopped by, the creeping thyme was blooming. It was in bloom, and it was glorious. And you can imagine what I did next. I went right out to the nursery and I bought myself a couple of flats of creeping thyme. So creeping thyme is a wonderful ground cover. Now, another one that is recommended here is Irish moss. Now, you really have to have the ideal location if you're going to try to grow Irish moss. It can be very, very finicky. It is tougher than it looks, and it is definitely beautiful. But again, a shady garden with plenty of moisture is always ideal when you're talking about moss. Sweet alyssum is another option. And then she mentions ferns, and I'm a huge fan of putting in fern glades. They're low maintenance, they smell beautiful, and they look amazing. And of course, if you want to install a fern glade, you don't have to go crazy buying ferns, because over time they will spread, and they will spread quite rapidly. And I think you'll be surprised at how quickly your fern glade fills in. Now, I'm just going to go through two more that are on this list, and then I'll let you check up on this post for yourself. One of them that is mentioned here is lamb's ear. Now, in my experience, lamb's ear has not been a ground cover, but it is a wonderful plant, very, very tactile. It's velvety and fuzzy, and it's a great plant to have if you have kids, because of course, kids are really into the sensory experience of the garden. Now, that said, if you've been able to successfully use lamb's ear as a ground cover, please reach out and let me know, because I would love to hear about that. And then the next plant that I wanted to end with that I think is a wonderful ground cover is Pachysandra, or Japanese spurge. Now, what's great about this particular plant as a ground cover is that it retains this vibrant green color all season long, all year long. You will not see this turn brown and shrivel up. That is not what this plant is about. It retains this gorgeous green color. It's actually got this shiny foliage, and where I love to grow it here in Maple Grove is under my deck where nothing else is going to grow. But Pachysandra is very happy under there. All right, now if you would like to check out Erica's post for yourself for ideas for ground covers that you can use in your garden, just head on over to the Facebook group for the show and then look for the little magnifying glass under the header and type in the word ground cover, all one word, and Erica's post will pop up. Now, if you're not in the group, don't worry about it. You can join at any time. You have a standing invitation, and it is always free to join. All you need to do is the next time you're on Facebook, just head on up to the search bar where you'd search for a friend and type in the words Daily Gardener Community and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. It's time for today's Botanical History. Here's Botanical History for April 27th. Today is the birthday of the renowned and innovative 20th century landscape architect Thomas Church. Known as the Dean of Western Landscape Architects and the father of the California Garden, Thomas, or Tommy, as he was known to his clients and friends, is remembered for personalized landscape design. His 1955 book, aptly titled Gardens Are for People, drew on Tommy's belief that gardens are personal and that they needed to meet the needs of his clients. Tommy wrote, "We're all different, and our gardens and what we expect our land to do for us will vary as much as our demands and our personalities. No one can design intelligently for you unless he knows what you need, what you want, and what you like." Tommy also wrote, "The only limit to your garden is at the boundaries of your imagination." A pioneer of modernism in the garden, Tommy's approach to design came to be known as the California style. Tommy's California style included elements that seem pretty standard today. Raised beds, low-maintenance spaces, lots of ground cover, timber decking, kidney-shaped pools, places to sit, clean lines, and asymmetry. Tommy once wrote, "Style is a matter of taste. Design is a matter of principles." Tommy's portfolio was comprised of over 2,000 private gardens, but he did some work for Berkeley and Stanford and the University of California, Santa Cruz, where Tommy famously said, "Gentle be the hand, it lays upon the land." In addition to his private and university work, Tommy designed the gardens for Sunset Magazine after their headquarters moved to Menlo Park in 1952. Tommy designed the Sunset Garden to encircle an acre of lawn. The trees and plants represent the 17-state circulation area of Sunset Magazine and are grown in 4 distinct gardens. For instance, there was a dry Arizona desert garden and a wet garden representing the Northwest. Today at Sunset, the redwood trees that were planted from 5-gallon cans are now 100 feet tall. In all, there are over 300 varieties of trees, shrubs, and perennials in the Sunset Gardens. The annual flower beds are replanted 3 times each year. Now, 2 important aspects of gardening, the amount of expertise the owner had and the time they had available to care for their garden, were both taken into account by Thomas Church. His obituary said, quote, He thought it preposterous to create a garden with exotic, fragile plants that needed tending for busy people who just like to relax in a garden. He wanted these people to have a tranquil place that they could use and enjoy without its upkeep being an albatross around their necks. Thus, because each garden came from Tommy's understanding of its owners, none of them look the same, though they have common elements. It was Tommy Church who wrote, "When your garden is finished, I hope it will be more beautiful than you anticipated, require less care than you expected, and have cost only a little more than you had planned." And it was on this day, April 27th, in 1952, that the Knoxville News-Sentinel published a little article about a short, six-petaled, cherry red and white species tulip known as Tulip Clusiana, commonly called the Persian tulip or the peppermint tulip. Here's what it said. "Pretty and charming is Tulip Clusiana, named for the great botanist Clusius, who is said to have grown it in his garden in Flanders. It is known to have been cultivated for more than 300 years. Louise B.B. Wilder says of it, Clusius reported that it was sent to Florence in 1606 with the statement that it had come from Persia. Parkinson knew it as the early Persian tulip, and Sir Daniel Hall says it is now apparently wild from Chitral in Pakistan to Spain. Reginald Farr says it is frequently found in old olive orchards about Cannes. Now, the buds of Tulip Clusiana are long, slender, and pointed with broad streaks of rose red up the backs of white petals. Because of this effect, it is sometimes called the radish tulip. Other names are candy tulip and lady tulip. Clusiana tulips open with the sun, and then they close at night. It's time for today's Unearthed Words. Today's Unearthed Words come to us from Guy de Maupassant from his book, The Complete Short Stories of Guy de Maupassant. This is from Part 1. When the first fine spring days come, and the earth awakes and assumes its garment of verdure, when the perfumed warmth of the air blows on our faces and fills our lungs, and even appears to penetrate to our heart, we feel vague longings for undefined happiness, a wish to run, to walk at random, to inhale the spring. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Lawn Gone by Pam Pennick. This book came out in 2013, and the subtitle is Low Maintenance, Sustainable, Attractive Alternatives for Your Yard. In this book, Pam Pennick, one of my favorite garden bloggers, shares practical and down-to-earth advice for replacing a traditional high-maintenance lawn with something endlessly more manageable and inviting. Pam's book offers an inspiring look at the countless options for transforming residential landscapes with low-work flowers, shrubs, ground covers, and native plants mixed with paved or mulched areas. If you've been hesitant to take the plunge and downsize or eliminate the lawn altogether, Pam offers inspiration, reassurance, helpful ideas, how-tos, and tips. This book is 192 pages of beautiful, low-maintenance, and inviting lawn alternatives from an intelligent and practical garden blogger. You can get a copy of Lawn Gone by Pam Pennick and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $9. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day, April 27th, the Romans honored Flora, the goddess of flowers and spring. One of the goddesses of fertility and a goddess of eternal youth, Flora was married to the god of the west wind, Zephyr, and she was the mother of Carpus, a beautiful boy whose name means fruit. Today, carpology is the study of fruits and seeds, and a carp is the fruiting body of a fungus. The Latin term carpe diem, or seize the day, could also be thought of as make the day fruitful. Today, the word flora is a general name for the plants of a region. Now, while the growing season starts with Flora, the goddess of spring, it ends with Pomona, the goddess of the harvest. And so the two goddesses, Flora and Pomona, were respectively celebrated at the beginning and end of the growing season. In 1884, the British artist and designer Sir Edward Colley Burne-Jones created two beautiful tapestries which depicted life-sized figures of both Flora and Pomona. Each tapestry was nearly 10 feet long, and both goddesses are surrounded by a backdrop of foliage and flowers. To the Romans, Flora and Pomona were deemed important enough to have their own dedicated priests, temples, and festivals. Flora's priest was called the Floralis, and her festival was called the Floralia. Established in 240 BC, the Floralia was a week-long festival that was loaded with symbolism around renewal and rebirth, and celebrated with drinking and flowers. During the festivities, even men wore flowers, and women were allowed to wear bright-colored clothing, something considered taboo otherwise. Now, one of the most beautiful and beloved frescoes from this time depicts Flora. Beloved by many, this masterpiece highlights Flora against a green background. She's wearing a yellow dress, and she's walking barefoot with her back to us. In her left arm is a cornucopia basket filled with delicate spring flowers, and her right hand is reaching to pluck a white flower from a shrub. Today, the Flora fresco is housed at the National Archaeological Museum in Naples, Italy. Now, finding representations of flora in art is easy, especially if you know what to look for. Flora is often shown holding a small bouquet and crowned with a halo of blossoms. And can you guess what Flora's special gift was? Here's a hint. It was made naturally from flowers and was highly valued by the Romans for its medicinal and culinary uses. The answer is honey. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Maple Grove and Wyoming, Minnesota, with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, and Eric Begay. If you want to read today's show notes, just head on over to thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. And don't forget that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. Last but not least, you can always get in touch by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.